Hello everybody! I am making another video again. At the current point in making this, I have just stopped with my Dell PowerEdge 2600 for the day. Now, if at any point in time you happen to be watching this video and then watch the Dell PowerEdge 2600 video, you'll get the idea of why I'm saying this. This was a laptop shown in another video that at this point in time I have still not uploaded, even though I took the video and rendered it 3 weeks ago. This is a Gateway LT20 Cav 60. This laptop is an Intel Atom laptop. This laptop has an 80 gig hard drive. This laptop has a whopping 1 gigabyte of RAM. This laptop does not have the correct charger. This laptop shows my reflection in it. This laptop has a ridiculously small keyboard. So, now, I'm just going to show off what I have installed on it and whatever, as you can see me doing stuff in the mirror. And yes, I did say mirror on purpose. I installed Linux Mint 17 Cinnamon on this because I knew it would run alright. The Intel Atom processor in this is way more than enough to handle Linux Mint. If I had installed Windows 7 on it, for example, it would crash and burn. It does take a minute to get started up, but you can see the hard drive chunking away. Curiously enough, I do not have the correct AC adapter for this. All I have is a AC adapter meant for a similar Acer laptop, and the laptop charger that I use for my gaming laptop, which happens to be the exact same size and voltage. All that's different is the amp rating. This segment of the video is being added purely to stave off any people who think they're smart enough to comment on areas they don't really need to be. As you can see, this is the charger for my main gaming laptop. It is 19.5 volts at 6.15 amps. If you look on the back here, it's very small and very hard to see, but it's there. 19 volts at 1.58 amps. My adapter may be 19 volts, but the difference is completely negligible. And the jack size is just about proper and does not require any noticeable force to insert it into the jack. Now, just to prove that this works and charges without exploding it, I'm going to plug it in and eye the battery. As you can see, the battery charging LED has illuminated, indicating the battery is charging. So this adapter obviously works with this laptop. It has fully working speakers that are really not in the best spot. I'm pretty sure they're under it, but I can't tell you that for certain. As you can tell, the hard drive is a bit slow, but I'm pretty sure this laptop does have a slot for a SATA SSD, which is nice and handy. This laptop also would have been sold at a Verizon store. As you can see, it has the 3G indicator thing there, and underneath the battery you would install a SIM card, and that would give you 3G connectivity. Of course, though, you need to be in Windows XP and using the only one driver they ever made for this thing. So, I'm pretty sure I don't have System Profiler benchmark on here, but let's check. No, I don't. So, what I'm going to do instead is, since Linux Mint is really not that eventful in anything it does, I'm going to reboot to the BIOS. Okay, so here we are on the setup screen. As you can see, this is an Intel Atom N270 at 1.60 gigahertz. It is a bit of an old one, but this is a netbook, so it wouldn't have come with an outrageously large processor anyway. And you can see right there, it is an LT20 Gateway, made under the reign of Acer before they discontinued their product line. The VGA BIOS version is Intel V1585, whatever that means, And you can see the UUID is 3A0C. I'm not reading that whole number. I really doubt you could do anything with those anyway. As you can see, it lists the serial number for the hard drive and the hard drive, which is curious. I don't know how it can detect the serial number for the hard drive, but, you know, anything's possible. As you can see, it keeps the system time and date correct. As you can see, it is 1/29/2015. It has a total of 8 megabytes of video memory, which seems to run Cinnamon very well for an 8 megabyte video RAM. I've had other beefier computers with a whole 8 megabytes of video RAM fumble over XFCE, and I've had to install LXDE. As you can see, it has the option for Quiet Boot, but I hate Quiet Boot. Quiet Boot is for scrubs. It has D2D recovery, which I'm not sure what that means, but I would assume it's kind of not something that I want to touch. As well, you can see this does support USB booting, which is kind of essential because this does not have a CD-ROM at all. It also supports booting off of a USB flash drive as well as anything else. And for some reason it can boot off of a USB floppy disk, which when this laptop was made, which is probably 2009 or 2010, I'm not exactly sure, but at that time, why would you be booting off a floppy disk? Why? Under what circumstance would you be booting off of one of those? So, anyway, let's get out of this, and I'll set some stuff up in Linux Mint so we can see, you know, what the interest of this is. And I don't actually want to save changes and exit. I want to exit discarding changes. Alright, so while I spent some time downloading hard info or system profiler and benchmarking on my hellaciously slow internet, I would like to take note of the Wi-Fi and 3G enable, disable slider thing. The thing on this, or whatever you want to call it, is it works, but it also has a delay for when it indicates or registers that you've actually moved to the thing. So let me demonstrate by putting it down. I'm going to now slide this to turn on the 3G because I don't want to turn off the Wi-Fi. If I can keep this still. And you can see it's pretty responsive turning on, but wait, let me turn it off. It has a good 1 second before it actually turns off. Now this is very minor, but to someone who may not actually recognize that it has a slight time delay, they might wind up going something like this. And turning it back on, and then repeating, and repeating, and repeating, and repeating until they get so frustrated that they throw their laptop out a window. But I would think they would want to anyway, because this laptop's screen size, not in terms of physical dimensions, but in terms of resolution, it's horrible. You literally cannot get any worse than this. Now, hold on, let me show you what the resolution is as I download a program. Okay, so we're installing CPU burn now. Let me just show you in the system settings how bad this resolution is. So I'm opening up the displays thing, and look at that resolution. 1024 by 600 at 16 by 9. Ugh. So now if I go through the system profiler and benchmarking utility, you can more easily see what this is equipped with. And as you can see here, I'm pretty sure this Intel Atom CPU does have a, I don't think they would call it turbo boost at the time. They would call it speed step at the time, I'm pretty sure. So instead of reporting the 1600 megahertz on the second core like it does here, it reports it as half that due to this core not being used, I think, is what that is, to use less power. And what's interesting is it reports the stepping, or the family, as Pentium 3 Xeon. Ha! Alright, so I just did a CPU blowfish test which is the one test that I always run on a Linux system like this. And CPU Blowfish reports that this machine does this benchmark in 17.09 seconds, less seconds is better, compared to a Intel Celeron M clocked at 1.50 and a PowerPC 740-750 at 280. You would find a 740-750 in the blue and white PowerMac G3, for example. Now, again, in the Blowfish and technically the profiler itself, it reported a 800 megahertz clock, which I don't know how it figures with, you know, an 800 megahertz clock that it outperforms a 1.50 gigahertz Celeron, but hey, whatever. Now, let's get into the main feature. The program I installed here, called CPU Burn, is a utility that I use quite often to stress test Linux machines. And it doesn't give any fancy graphical output or anything like that. It's a very simple thing. You just type in capital B, earn, actually no, I'm wrong, lowercase b, earn, capital P, 6, and you can see it just goes to a blinking cursor, and it's like, wow, what happened? But, wait a second, let me just do it again on here. Running burn P6 again. Now if I go into the system monitor, you can see that now both of the processors are jacked up to 100%. And that's what CPU Burn's job is. It forces the CPU cores to idle at 100%. And I really shouldn't say idle because using 100% of your CPU is not really that idle. It can be if you're on like a 400 megahertz Celeron processor and running Windows 7, but who would be doing that? Not me. So, as you can see, it keeps both of the CPU cores at 100%, and the tiny fan over here is really not working that hard. Not even any noticeable airflow right now. So I'll let that burn in for a couple of minutes. Rerunning the processor scan in System Profiler while the burn is running reveals that both of the cores are now running at their maximum speed of 1.60 gigahertz. After running the burn P6 program for a while, there really is no noticeable or hugely noticeable difference in fan level, but I do have a lot of background noise right now from different computers, so this result might be a bit corrupted. Turning the noisy computers off in the background reveals that I was very right in saying that that does corrupt the result. Though it is by far not the most loud or obnoxious computer I've ever heard, and the fan, for how small it is, does get up to a quite noisy state. So, last thing I'm going to do in System Profiler is generate a report with all of the benchmarks, including all of the devices, all of the kernel modules and such. So I'm going to generate the report, and I'm going to save it to the desktop as called hard info report. This will take a minute, so I'll be back. The computer has finished generating the report and prompts me to open it with my browser, and I will do so. The fan is still at basically the max it'll go, but that's because it has to dispel a lot of heat. And even now you can see it's hanging quite high in the CPU thing there. So you can see on the summary page all of the processors. As you can see right here, it does not detect the battery or the sensor, so we cannot see the temperature of the CPU or anything around it, unfortunately. Okay, so now we're down into the benchmarks. So, as you can see in the CPU Blowfish category, our machine achieves a time of 19.256, while the next best achieves 2.26.18, compared to a 740-750 achieves 172. Going down to the crypto hash benchmark, you can see that that achieves a 51.335 second time, The Fibonacci benchmark achieves a time of 8 seconds, which is pretty good, but the next best is actually a little bit better with 8.1, and the 747.50 is 58 seconds. The CPU NQueen's benchmark achieves a time of 19.2, and the FPU FFT achieves a 19.92. FPU stands for floating point unit, so that's a floating point unit test, and again with the FPU we get a time of 37 opposed to the next best of 40. And the 747.50 is of course the worst with 161. So, now real quick before I end this video, let's test viewing angles. Wow, you can still sort of see it from that angle. Turning it back the other way. You can see it up to about there is when you can stop reading it. So it's an IPS display probably. So this is a pretty good display, except for the size. Ugh, the size. Okay, so anyway, that's about it. Thank you for watching this video today, and thank you for putting up with all the crap that I do, and how bad this video probably was in terms of everything else but, you know, content. But I am trying. I'm trying. So, after I shut this down, I will cut the video, and that will be it. So, thank you for watching, and have a nice day. And here I thought that would be timed nicely. I was sorely mistaken.